We're already halfway through season 2 of the Frasier revival, and yes, we get some special guest stars like usual. We have one from the original Frasier universe and one new to Frasier, but a welcome face nonetheless. Let's talk about the squash courtship of Freddy's father. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my Frasier review for episode 5 of the season 2 revival of Frasier. This is called the Squash Courtship of Freddy's Father. And yes, if you have not seen the episode yet and you don't want spoilers, go back and watch the episode. It's on Paramount Plus right now, and then come back because I will be talking about plot details and who the special guest stars are and all of this. So just keep that in mind as you're watching. But look, welcome back to the channel. If you are one of my subscribers already, thank you so much. Always love when you guys return. But if you're not one of my subscribers, please consider doing so, or even like this video, click the notification bell. Comment below, all that stuff, of course, helps the channel out as well. And I love interacting with the Frasier fans, so please do comment with your thoughts on this episode. And if you just come to my channel for the Frasier stuff, that is awesome. But I do a whole lot of other things, too, on the channel. Almost every day I post something, usually movie or TV related. And if you're like me and still are watching the new broadcast series on ABC and CBS and NBC and Fox for the fall, well, I've got some reviews for those up as well. High Potential, Dr. Odyssey, Rescue High Surf have already gone up, and there's more in the works. So, if you're like me and just are a TV fan, check out some of those reviews as well. All right, so this is called the Squash Courtship of Freddy's Father. So, this is a Freddy-centric episode, and another one sort of based around their relationship, Frasier and Freddy. But let's talk the specifics of the background for this episode. Jude Weng is the director here, new to Frasier, but she has done a lot of television. She is known for Fresh Off the Boat and Blackish and The Good Place and Young Sheldon, and I think her first job was on this great show called Party Down years ago. But recently she's done episodes of The New Quantum Leap and Ghosts and Twisted Metal. And she even has directed Matlock, the new Matlock starring Kathy Bates. I've not actually reviewed that yet because they've only done one preview episode. I like to give shows a 2-episode try before I give a review. So that will be returning, I think, next week. I don't know if she directed the pilot or what, but she is part of that. So obviously she is very, very in demand. This is her first credit on Frasier. But obviously more with single camera comedies, from that list I read. But she has done Call Me Kat, which was a multi-camera show as well. So, she's got her hands in both. But one of the shows she also directed was Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and that plays into one of our guest stars this episode, Rachel Bloom. But Sasha Stroman is the writer for this episode, and she was credited in one season 1 episode, and it was Freddy's birthday. And that was the episode for season 1 with Lilith. And I don't know, for getting a Lilith episode this season, I can't imagine that we're going to go through a season without a Lilith episode, right? She was in at least one episode per season of the original series, if not more. And a couple of those were 2-parters, so, 2 episodes just from that. But same with tonight's guest star, Bebe Glazer, Frasier's agent, played by Harriet Sansom Harris. She was in, I believe, also 1 episode per season. She did 11 episodes of Frasier, and there were 11 seasons. I don't know if she was actually in just 1 per season, or if maybe 1 season she missed and she doubled up another one. But anyway, the math kind of adds up there. So it is great to see her return. She has always been one of my favorite recurring characters. And I don't think of her that often, because when I was thinking of people from Frasier that might join this show, I actually didn't think of her. I thought about all the people he worked with at KACL. And at some point, we are still getting a Bulldog and Gil episode, and we already had a Roz episode this season. And, I think Lilith, but Bebe Glazer certainly made her mark. Some of my favorite Frasier episodes have to do with her character, and her sort of, she is a wacko. She is going to do anything to get Frasier to kind of do what she wants, or get Frasier's, handlers to give him a raise, or whatever. So it was nice to see her return, but we'll get to that in a second. But she's still working as well. I mean, she was in Ratchet recently on Netflix, and she still does a lot of work both on television and in theater. But okay, so this episode starts out with Frasier has written his memoir and is asking for comments on his first draft. And so everyone's, kind of gathered in the living room, and it's revealed while Frasier's out of the room that Olivia did not actually read it. And, he's in the kitchen checking on his brie, and Alan kind of says, oh, well, I was going to say this. And so Frasier comes back in and says, okay, let's get the ball rolling. Olivia, what did you think? And she steals Alan's comments, basically verbatim. And look, us as the audience, we see it coming a mile away, right? I mean, that's an old, kind of sitcom joke. But Alan has no idea what's going on, and the look on his face is really, kind of the punchline here, more than just her stealing the remarks. And that becomes a bit of a running thread in this episode as well. Three different times, I think, in total, she kind of, steals his words, including when Frasier is looking for activities he can do with Freddy, and Alan, says squash, but someone else says karaoke like right away. I think it was Eve. And so they get off of that. And then Olivia says, oh, what about squash? And then, that's the one Frasier hears. And then again, later on in the episode, Olivia and Alan are talking about some things in his office, which, I haven't gotten to that part of the plot yet, but, and she steals those words again, and Alan is just, beside himself. So that was kind of a funny running gag. Look, Olivia is not my favorite character, but I think they're making her a little bit more, like, wacky, and I think that probably is the right way to go. Look, if we're gonna go, the Frasier lore, the original Cheers, when Kirstie Alley came around, she was originally, Rebecca was like a very, straight-laced, button-up, no-nonsense businesswoman. And then after, a year or two with the bar and the guys at the bar, she turned into this kind of, caricature of a person. And personally, I think it made the character a lot funnier. And so, if they're going to sort of go that route with Olivia, we're learning kind of more about her each episode. And so I think there is a place for her on this show. She is still not my favorite character yet, but I like that they're making her a little bit, sort of, playing dirty, and I don't know, a little bit wackier, I guess. But so then anyway, no one has really good comments to say about the memoir. Eve thought it was much too wordy, and so she compares it without saying the title to The Very Hungry Caterpillar. And Frasier takes her words to mean that she is comparing it to Kafka's Metamorphosis. How like Frasier is so in his head, right? Eve did not read Metamorphosis. Like, come on. She's talking about how this is too wordy for her. In the last episode, he was trying to get her on, some kind of classical music or whatever, or like an opera, I forget, at the funeral. But so, but he's so in his head, he's so deluded, and that's always been one of the funniest portions of this character, is that he is just kind of delusional about the world around him. And so I think they were playing into that pretty well in this episode. And then you have David, who did not read the memoir himself, but he sent off a copy to his father, Niles, and that is where... So not only do we have BB, in this episode, but we have Niles kind of looming large. I don't know if we're ever going to get a David Hyde Pierce episode. He's publicly said, I have no interest in the new Frasier revival, whatever. But look, this thing could run 6, 7, 8 years, who knows? So maybe he will change his tune eventually. But for now, and they've been, referencing Niles and Daphne in, sprinkled in, not every episode, but, obviously David is their son. So sometimes they will say, oh yeah, mom said, whatever. And we know he's talking about Daphne. But Niles had a list this big of complaints about the book. And they weren't really so much complaints as just one-liners. And so, David starts reading them off, and it's just funny and funny and funny. And it's actually a shame, because it reminds us what a strong character Niles was. Like, for me, this was the funniest episode overall, and that was certainly part of it. But what it reminded me of and funniest episode of this season, I should say. Season 1 probably had some funnier ones, but of the 5 we've seen for this season, this is the funniest for me. But Niles was such a great sort of adversary with Frasier, a frenemy. The back and forth was great, and the one-liners were fantastic. And so to have David read just one-liner after one-liner after one-liner, and then they go back to that bit later on in the episode as well. And it just gets funnier and funnier, and so it kind of made me wistful that it's kind of a bummer that Niles isn't going to be a part of this show, because God, that is certainly one of the things that made that original Frasier click so much. To have two people that were very, very similar going back and forth. I think that was a stroke of genius. I'm not sure if it was David Angel that came up with that conceit, but one of the creators of Frasier sort of said, no, let's make them the same person basically, and have them go back and forth. So that was a fantastic part of the episode. But anyway, getting to the squash of it all, they decide, okay, let's play squash. They play, they win, they completely decimate their opponents, but Frasier wasn't having any fun, and he even says, it's not like when I used to play with Niles. We have no chemistry out there. Yeah, we won the game, but I'm not really feeling it, unfortunately. And look, parents don't have to be the same as their kids, and Olivia and Alan, talk about that in their moment in the office. I certainly, growing up, my dad and I did not have much in common, but we found, a little common ground here and there. He would take me to the movies and kind of leave my brothers at home. It was sort of a bonding day for us. And that was awesome. Those are some of my favorite memories, and I know over the years, it's been pretty obvious that Freddy was, going sort of in a different direction towards the end of the original Frasier. He had that kind of goth period, and he was sneaking around and lying and whatever. But look, he always, I think, hoped that Freddy would be this big academic, and he's not, and whatever. We've gone over that time and time again in this revival. But then he has a meeting with BB Glazer at the opera. I think it's the next evening or whatever. And so he does that, and just saying his BB's name, the thunder outside, goes or whatever. That was kind of hacky, but hearing her name, the audience like uproars and applause. Oh my God, BB's coming back. So they go to the opera, and BB brings her daughter Phoebe, who is played by Rachel Bloom. I mentioned her from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and it's so great to see her. If you've not checked out Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, it is one of the most brilliant shows of the last 10 or 15 years. Absolutely great. So definitely check that out. I don't know if it's streaming anywhere, but yeah, definitely a good show there. And she was the star of it. I think she created it as well. But great to see her. So the two of them are really, really bonding in a way that him and Freddy have not. And so there's a little, kind of jab at BB about them sleeping together in the 90s and whatever. And so planting that little foreshadowing seed for the future of the episode. But then we have, Frasier talking about his memoir, and BB's like, no, I don't want to talk about your memoir. There's nothing juicy in it. There's no sex, drugs, or rock and roll. It's very boring, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, I'm not writing a gossip tell-all. I don't want to do that. This is my vision. She just wants him to get his TV show back. So she mentions that there is some TV studios not too far from here that just went up. We could record it there 2 days a month, she says, which is a little ridiculous. I mean, if his show was on 5 days a week, which we're led to believe, I think you would need a little more than 2 days, even if you're filming 5 episodes a day. That's still only 10 episodes. So whatever. I won't get into the logistics of that, but that's the plan. And okay, let's talk about it. Frasier wants nothing to do with it, but he is realizing that, oh my gosh, this daughter of BB's, I wonder, we did have that night together in 1995. The age lines up. They talk about how old she is. She said, oh yeah, I was born in 95. And so he's like, oh my God, I might have a daughter I didn't know about. BB's daughter could be my daughter, whatever. This is my one kind of other sticking point of this episode. BB was around at that time, right? So Frasier would have seen her be pregnant and wonder, is that mine? Is the timeline matching up? We slept together, on this day. You're this many months pregnant. Like I, I find it a little hard to believe that Frasier would not have wondered back then if she were pregnant at that time. But anyway, it's revealed later in the episode that this is another one of BB's schemes, and that she is BB's real daughter. But her, her whole, setting Frasier up to think maybe she is his daughter, was a complete fabrication, a complete setup, because she's like, oh, the one thing that I want from you is to be closer. I live in whatever the town is that has the TV studios that BB mentioned earlier, and he was like, oh, isn't that where there's the TV studios? And then he says, okay, I will do the show, or I'll think about doing the show, he says, for you or whatever. But so after it's revealed that it was all a setup, BB playing him yet again, he does say, okay, you know what? I will at least take Phoebe into my camp. She can also represent me. She seems like a nice person, blah, 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 blah. And then the other kind of nitpick I have is at the end of the episode, Phoebe changes her voice from the Rachel Bloom natural voice that she's been using the whole episode to sort of a carbon copy of BB's voice. I don't know how I like that. She doesn't have to be a carbon copy of BB. She could have the scheming, mindset, but she doesn't have to quite go there or whatever. So, all right. So, look, that was the episode. So, overall, like I've been saying, this is, for me, the funniest of the season. I think a lot of that does have to do with the Niles one-liners about the book. I think those were, brilliant. But also, I think some of the other things, I think all of the other storylines are working. The Rachel Bloom, Phoebe Glazer thing, that worked. Alan and Olivia kind of going back and forth and her stealing his lines, that worked. And that was a little reminiscent, too, of, an old Cheers gag between Woody and Rebecca. Played off a little differently here, but still funny. And then, just the idea of Frasier writing a memoir and not wanting to tone it down. Like, it's so Frasier. Having written something that is too dense for almost anyone to read, but like a college professor or something like that. It's like, nobody is just going to pick that up for. Niles even said it was great for a beach read if you're on Normandy or something. I mean, so even Niles, who is obviously of that same mindset, thinks this is garbage. Now, is that sort of brotherly rivalry? Maybe, but the lines were funny nonetheless. So this was a very funny episode. I loved Rachel Bloom, and if we're going to get a BB episode every season, if we're getting a BB and Phoebe, or maybe just one or the other, I would be okay with that, if she would return once a season. And that's the thing with the 10-episode seasons, is that with the old model of 24 episodes, you had more time to have special guest stars, and, okay, we're going to have this person from Cheers come in for the episode. Now everything's so condensed. Almost every episode you have to have a special guest star, which, and a couple of you had written in the comments about last week's episode that Amy Sedaris didn't really have to play that therapist at the firehouse. It could have been anybody, any day player, give somebody new a shot kind of thing. But because there's only 10 episodes, they want to get a guest star in every single time. And already in the 5 episodes, we've had Roz return, we've had BB return, and we know that there's a Bulldog episode coming up. So, yeah, I don't know. But look, this was, I think, the best episode of the season. I think there was a lot to love here. But it did make me realize how much Niles is missed, and how much that kind of back and forth is missed in this iteration of Frasier. Sad to say, because I do like this iteration. I mean, I've given, I think, every episode a positive grade, at least in this season. Maybe in season 1 there was one I gave like a C to or something, but this season so far, has all been a C+ or higher. This is, I think, the best one of the season. So I leave the Squash Courtship of Freddy's Father with an A-. And you can check this out now, of course, on Paramount Plus. We have 5 episodes to go, so please come back next week and check out my review for the next episode, which is Cape Cod. So maybe it is a vacation type of episode. That could be fun. All right, thank you so much for watching Dan Reviews It. I'll see you next time. Bye.